Child's Play 3, the novelization of the film by Matthew J. Costello. Chapter 21. This gun is as nearly as big as I am, Tyler thought. Too bad it's only filled with paint. I'd like to fire a real gun like Barkley on the rifle range. That would be neat. But then Tyler thought, as he followed his team marching through the woods, this is a real gun, even if it's loaded only with paint pellets. As Tyler marched, he wondered, where's Charles? Where's my new friend? Tyler smiled. I bet he'll come out here to the fields. I bet he'll watch the games. Charles likes to play games, like hide and seek, and what's that other game he wanted to play? Hide the soul? Never played that one before. Bet it's fun. Tyler looked over his shoulder at the other end of the field. He saw the blue team, Barkley's team, marching into the woods at another spot. We have to get their flag, and they have to get our flag. I hope I get to shoot Barkley, he thought. This is going to be fun. There was one good thing about this nonsense, thought Andy. It gets me and Tyler away from the school. Maybe out here Chucky won't find us. He looked back to the school buildings and he saw the red team moving into the woods. Maybe Chucky won't come out here. I hope that's true, because how can I help Tyler if he's on the other team? Playing paintball. God, this is so dumb, thought Andy. Paintball. We've gone from gung-ho to gung-dumb. He looked over at Whitehurst, so quiet, marching by himself, struggling with his heavy pack, the gun. What happened to him, thought Andy. What happened to Whitehurst that he won't talk about it? What could make him go white as a sheet? Let me guess. Would it be, by any chance, maybe Chucky? I have to talk to Whitehurst. Later, after he's calmed down, talk to him, warn him, and maybe get him to help me. The forest was ahead, thick with branches that reached into the trail as if trying to snag the cadets' backpacks. It was uphill now. Andy grunted, humping his pack toward the blue team's outpost. The blue team had a perfect location on top of a hill overlooking the entire valley. Andy raised the binoculars and started searching the woods below, looking for splotches of red. He scanned the woods and finally saw some movement. A line of cadets wearing red armbands. The enemy. Nuke 'em. Drop the big one right on their heads. He moved the binoculars to follow the line of cadets looking for Tyler. He didn't see him. Andy licked his lips, feeling cold standing here. God, where is Tyler? Finally, he saw Tyler up near the front of the line. The boy was hauling a gun that looked ridiculously big. Good boy, Andy thought. Stay near the front of the line. Just stay right there where the rest of that wonderful red team can keep their eyes on you. He brought the binoculars down and noticed Whitehurst standing alone. Now's the time, he thought. He walked over to Whitehurst. The fat kid didn't see him for a second, but then he turned, acting startled. As if he wants to get away from me, thought Andy. Whitehurst looked up and, seeing Andy, started to move away. But Andy ran to him and grabbed his shoulder. Whitehurst, what's going on? He held Whitehurst tight. The kid tried to shrug off Andy's hand. Whitehurst shook his head. Wrong, thought Andy. Wrong. You're lying because you're afraid of what they'll say, like what they've said about me and my mother and Kyle. That we're crazy. You saw something, Whitehurst, didn't you? You saw him, didn't you? Whitehurst looked up. His face still had that same puffy, scared look that it had had when Whitehurst burst onto the quad late. Andy stepped closer to let him know that this was just between them. Andy wasn't going to announce it to the whole company. You saw Chucky, didn't you? Whitehurst shook his head and licked his lips. Andy let his hand fall, and Whitehurst started marching back to the outpost. Andy ran alongside him. Hey, damn it, don't whip out on me now, man. I need your help. That kid needs your help. If you saw Chucky, tell me. Whitehurst, I need your help. Whitehurst turned and yelled at Andy. I didn't see anything, okay? I didn't see anything at all. Right, Andy nodded, and that's why you're hysterical now, scared half to death. Whitehurst turned and quickly walked away to the safety of the other cadets. You saw him all right, thought Andy. You saw what Chucky can do and who he is, and that scared you. You don't want him coming for you. Can't say that I blame you. Not at all. I didn't want him coming after me either, but he's not after me, and he's not after Whitehurst. He's after Tyler. And funny thing, Tyler thinks that the doll is his friend. Friends till the end, which may be coming very soon. Night came so much faster in the woods. One minute it was afternoon and the tents were being pitched, while Shelton had 2 cadets cooking franks and beans. The next minute it was dark and everyone was gathered around the campfire. Andy sat off to the side. De Silva sat with her friends, Ivers and another girl, Williams. Ellis had a few younger cadets throwing heavy logs onto the fire. Shelton marched around the camp as if he were in battle in Vietnam or something. Andy would have liked to go into his tent to get some sleep, but even after carrying that pack 5 miles into the woods, somehow he didn't feel like sleeping. Guess I'm a bit preoccupied, he thought. He moved closer to the campfire. He saw De Silva glance up at him. She was telling a story to her friends. Andy smiled at her good old-fashioned campfire horror tale. So he stood and listened. The babysitter heard a thump, thump, thumping. De Silva acted out something heavy, flopping, like someone or something being dragged across the upstairs floor. And then, she thinks to herself. De Silva put a finger into the air, acting out the witless babysitter to perfection. Andy laughed, and De Silva looked up at him. She thinks, I haven't checked the children. So she hurries to the stairs, and up at the top, De Silva lowered her voice. She sees... Andy took a step closer, caught by her tell. She sees her boyfriend. And now De Silva raised her voice. Her eyes went wide. Completely dismembered, dragging himself along the floor with his chin. De Silva bobbed her head up and down, miming the horrid action. Thump! 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 De Silva's girlfriends were sitting very close. Ivers spoke first. That's gross, real gross, like, it makes me want to throw up, De Silva. Andy felt the smile fade on his face. He stared into the fire. He remembered the fireplace, his mother. That was gross, real gross, and it wasn't a story. Chucky was going to kill them all. Andy, an 8-year-old, knew that. He remembered even tonight when that thought had hit home. Chucky's gonna kill my mom, and then he'll take my soul and kill me, and the only thing that could stop him is my mother. Chucky on Andy's leg. Andy saw blood. The doll was like a dog, biting, holding down. His mother kicked at it, and Andy screamed, No, Mommy, no, stop him, stop Chucky! She kicked the doll. He went flying across the floor. She kicked him again, and he went into the fireplace, and she screamed for Andy to come and help. She held a screen in front of the fireplace, and Chucky pushed against it. Andy was scared. He couldn't move, couldn't help his mother. Andy! She screamed. Please, help me! Andy nodded. Then slowly, a good boy, he did what his mommy asked. He went to one end of the fireplace screen. Chucky was cursing and yelling at them. Andy held the screen, pushing it flush against the fireplace. He saw his mother reach behind her, trying to get the matches, while Chucky sat there and said to him, I'm gonna get out, Andy. Yeah, and I'm gonna kill your bitch of a mother. And then I'm gonna get you, Andy boy. I'm gonna get you. Andy remembered crying. The fireplace, the metal screen went blurry because he was crying. His mother couldn't reach the matches. She stretched a bit more. Chucky was almost able to push the screen away. Andy put his whole weight against the screen. He heard Chucky growling like a dog, an animal. His mother got the matches. She shook one out, lit it, and then stuck it into the fireplace. Chucky's clothes, his plastic skin, the newspaper in there, the log, it all went up so fast, cooking Chucky, melting him, turning him into this black goo. We thought it was over. We thought it had all ended in that fireplace. We were wrong. Andy looked at the campfire. There was nothing funny in horror stories anymore. De Silva spoke to him. Hey, your turn, Barkley. You got a scary story? Andy shook his head. No scary stories, he thought. No? Oh, come on, Barkley. Andy shook his head. Sorry. He turned from the fire and started to walk away. I'm going for a walk. Doubt if I could sleep now, Andy thought. No way. As he walked into the darkness surrounding the camp, he heard Ivers start telling her story. Chucky pushed at the bush. My, doesn't that look just cozy? Those little cheerleader cadets sitting round the old campfire swapping horror stories. Gross. They gotta be fucking kidding. I could show them gross. How about some filet of Botnick, or the late tale of the garbage man who really got into his work? And there's Andy, standing near the fire listening. Maybe he hopes that he'll get lucky. No, Chucky thought, seeing Andy's expression as he turned away. No, getting lucky wasn't on Andy's agenda tonight. Chucky crouched down, hiding more carefully behind the bush, watching Andy drift away from the others. Oh, Andy's going off on his own. Now isn't that convenient? He watched Andy walk into the darkness. Poor boy must have a death wish. I know I sure do. For him. And I like to make my wishes come true. Chucky crouched lower and watched Andy walk away. Chapter 22. Andy walked farther up the slope to a bluff that overlooked their campsite. I could climb it, he thought, and see all around here, see where the other camp is, the red camp. He started up the bluff, grabbing at a dead bush sticking out of the ground, looking for a foothold, when he heard something behind him. Andy froze, his hands locked on the bush. The dirt started to shift at his feet. He turned and saw Da Silva. "Hey, it was only a story," she said. Andy smiled and he nodded. "That's not it. I'm just getting away." He took another step. "Mind if I come along?" she said. He stopped. Oh, I'm sorry, sure. Here." Andy stuck out a hand and helped her to climb the first outcrop of rocks. She fell into him, and they both pressed against the bluff. Andy looked to the top of the bluff. "It's a bit of a climb, probably not much for you, though, huh?" Da Silva smiled and then nodded in a mock expression of macho. "Yeah, probably," she laughed, and so did Andy. Boy, he thought, do I like her. He turned back to the bluff and started climbing. After a few feet, the dirt shifted and he lost some ground. Da Silva quickly shot out a hand and, putting it on his butt, stopped him from sliding any further. "Thanks," he said, beet red. Thankfully, it was too dark for Da Silva to see. As he reached the top, he heard sound, music, strange music, weird music, all thumping and squeaks. He hurried now, grabbing at the lip of the bluff. "Do you hear that?" he said. "There's music or something. Do you hear it?" He pulled himself up to the top of the bluff, and Da Silva quickly followed. "Yeah, wow, it sounds like a carnival, but where?" Andy stood up. From here, overlooking the woods, he could see a lake and an amusement park. "It is one, see?" Da Silva stood close to him. "There's a carousel, a roller coaster? Neat!" Andy just looked and listened, absorbing the wonderful sounds, the music, and then, when the roller coaster plunged, the screaming. "Pretty cool, huh?" Da Silva said. Andy nodded, thinking, yeah, cool, but it was a place for families, kids with their moms and dads. "I went once, a long time ago." Andy wanted to look away. I almost forgot there were places like that where people go to have fun. Da Silva was close to him. Andy was aware of her standing right next to him. "It reminds me of this place my dad used to take me. I always wanted to go on the merry-go-round. He always wanted me to test my strength with those mallets." Andy nodded, and then he heard a rustling just behind him. "Listen," Andy grabbed Da Silva's arm. "There's somebody there." Da Silva cocked her head left and then right. She shrugged. "It's just a chipmunk or something." Andy let go of her arm. There was just the sound of the carnival now, and then the screams of the kids on the roller coaster, the roar of the wheels on the metal track. Da Silva looked at him. "Pretty jumpy tonight, aren't we?" Andy took a breath. Yeah, he thought, it must seem that way. He looked at Da Silva, so pretty, even wearing her field uniform. "But nothing scares you, does it, Da Silva?" She grinned. "Oh, I don't know about that. I have fears like everyone. It's just that Shelton isn't one of them." Andy looked down to the woods. He couldn't see any other campfire except their own. The red team and Tyler could be anywhere. De Silva, where do you think the red team camped out? Who knows? Shelton will find them, though. He always does. He may be a jerk, but he's great at these stupid games. Trust me. He'll find them. Why are you so curious? Truth or dare time, thought Andy. I told Whitehurst about Chucky, and boy, that worked out well. The guy won't even talk to me now, and he's acting as if he saw Chucky in action. He turned to De Silva, thinking, I need a friend. I could use some help. Someone who's strong and good and doesn't get scared. De Silva, can I trust you? She smiled, as if the question itself was absurd. Yes, what is it? What's wrong? He opened his mouth and took a deep breath. You see, Then he sighed. How to start? Where to start? Just come out and tell her. There's a doll here. He wants Tyler's soul, and he wants to kill me. To go back. To the start. To the wonderful Christmas present my mom got me, and how it cost her $20 and our life together, and... De Silva waited. De Silva. She smiled warmly, trying to make this easy. By the way, you can call me Kristen. That's my first name. Though I sure don't hear it much around here at Kent. You got one too, I assume. Andy was still thinking, looking for a way to tell her. Got one? He said absently. Got what? She laughed. A first name, Barkley. He nodded. Oh, yeah, Andy. Andy it is then. Now, what were you trying to tell me, Andy? Well, isn't that sweet? Young love is about to bloom. Chucky shook his head. Perhaps, he thought, I can just come behind them and poof, give 'em both a neat push off the edge of that cliff. Oh, it would be such a terrible accident. Chucky looked at his plastic hands, scuffed from crawling up the bluff. He looked at them, still plastic. They haven't turned to flesh yet. That's good. He flexed the fingers, but he noticed something. They're starting to feel more real, more like my own fingers. He turned back to the cliff. Yeah, they look close enough. Chucky took a step from behind the pine tree. Andy grinned. There was no way, no good way to tell her. Forget the whole idea, he thought. Well, De Silva said, coming closer. Andy felt her touching him, felt her body pressing against him, the way it did the other day on the rifle range. She leaned closer, no longer really looking for Andy to say anything. She leaned forward until her lips brushed Andy's cheek, and then moved to his lips. She pressed against him. It felt wonderful to have De Silva squeezing him, moving her wonderful lips against his, while the carnival rang out, "Take me out to the ball game, take me out to the ball game." Andy reached around and pulled her tighter. When he heard the footsteps, he broke the kiss. Andy turned to the direction the steps came from, aware that they were at the cliff edge. He turned and saw Shelton. "Well, don't you two just look cozy? The dweeb pleb and Lady Tarzan. Break it up, it's lights out in 5 minutes, and we're moving out at dawn." Andy reluctantly let go of De Silva and walked past Shelton. He saw the cadet's major smirk as he filed past him, down to the path leading down the bluff. Great, Andy thought, something else for Shelton to rag me about. And I was close, he thought, close to telling her what's going on, why I need her help. Just like I needed Kyle inside that factory. He waited for Kristen to catch up, and then together they climbed down the slope while Shelton watched them. When Andy got back to the camp, Ellis was on patrol, marching back and forth as if he were guarding Fort Knox. Andy walked past him to the tents. As he passed Shelton's tent, he saw something lying on his sleeping bag. Andy looked back at Ellis, but he was walking in the other direction, his paint gun at the ready. Andy knelt down as if he were tying his shoelaces. He looked in the tent. It was a map. Andy remembered just after dinner Shelton had gathered 3 of the senior cadets, and they disappeared together. Andy had an idea. Still crouching, he moved into Shelton's tent. The lantern cast a pale yellow glow on the sleeping bag. It was a map of the woods. Andy saw the lake, the amusement park, a circle indicating the blue team. And there, to the north, another circle in red. The red team. Shelton was coming, following him down the bluff. Andy grabbed the map and slipped out of the tent. He looked at Ellis, just about to turn around. Andy ran to his own tent. Whitehurst was already in his sleeping bag, staring up at the top of his tent. Andy got in quickly and then closed the flap. But then he crouched down and, pulling the flap open just a bit, peeked out. "Hey, what are you doing?" Andy grabbed his pack and pulled it on. "What's going on?" Whitehurst said. Andy looked at Whitehurst. He's still scared, Andy thought. He won't talk about it, but the kid's still scared. Andy tightened the straps of his pack. "I'm going after Tyler." Whitehurst sat up. "What? Are you crazy? You're going after Tyler? You'll never find him." Andy shook his head. "Want to bet?" He pulled out the map from his back pocket. "What's that?" Shelton sent out a reconnaissance squad, 3 guys, just after dinner, and it looks like they found the base of the red team. Andy showed Whitehurst the big red circle on the map. "How'd you get that?" "I swiped it." "Shelton's gonna be real?" "I don't give a shit about Shelton." Andy crawled close to Whitehurst, his head bumping the top of the tent. "Now listen, Harold Aubrey, I need help. Tyler's in trouble. You know he's in trouble." Whitehurst shook his head. "Listen, he's a sitting duck out there, Whitehurst. Now are you with me or not?" Whitehurst looked away, staring at nothing. Then slowly he let himself fall back to his sleeping bag. Andy waited. He won't look at me, Andy thought. Can't look at me. You know, after 16 years of people telling you that you're a wimp, you start to believe it yourself. Whitehurst shook his head. He sounded as if he were about to cry. "I'm sorry. I can't." Andy nodded. He patted Whitehurst's leg. Then he turned around. He opened up the tent flap again. He saw Ellis facing this way, but just about to turn around. And I don't see anyone else, Andy thought. He waited. Ellis completed his turn just at that moment, and Andy threw the tent flap open wide and crawled out. He got to his feet, and then, map in hand, he ran north. Chapter 23. Andy darted from his tent, running with his heavy pack before Ellis made his turn. The dark maw of the woods was just there, only feet away. Ready to gobble me up, thought Andy. He heard Ellis's voice. Andy's breath choked in his throat, and he thought Ellis caught me. "Where are you going, Barkley? What are you up to?" And he'll look and find the map that I stole. But Andy didn't turn back. Maybe Ellis had been talking to someone else. Maybe he didn't care. Andy reached the woods and vanished down the meandering trail that led to the slope and turned north, to the red camp. A branch scratched Andy's face, and he jumped back. It was black here. When Andy looked straight up, he saw nothing, no stars, no moon, if it was out, absolutely nothing. He jiggled the pack on his back. It seemed so heavy. He dug his flashlight out of the side of the flap and pulled the map from his pocket. He aimed the flashlight at a nearby tree. There was a dab of yellow paint on the tree. Looking back at the map, he saw the trail marked with a yellow line, leading right to the red outpost. At least I'm going the right way, he thought. He took another step, but Andy didn't see the twisted root sticking out across the trail. It snagged his foot, and he went flying down. His pack made him land even harder. Andy got up to his knees. He smelled the dirt, the rich smell of the pine trees, the air growing cold and damp. I gotta get a move on. Yeah, thought Andy, before Chucky gets to Tyler. He got up quickly and started hiking north. Chucky risked pushing the pack's top flap open just a little. Slowly, he thought, very slowly. Don't want Andy boy to know he's carrying a little surprise in his backpack. This is great, Chucky thought. Andy is so worried about Tyler. worried that I might get to him, and he's the one carrying me right to Tyler's camp. I was never a Boy Scout. No way I'd ever find the red camp, but Andy's doing me a big solid. Chucky saw the back of Andy's neck. He watched him push branches away. One snapped back, scraping Chucky's cheek. Ow! Now that hurts. Move your ass, Andy boy. Time's a-wasting. My biological clock is ticking. Chucky slipped back down into the pack, warm and comfortable, riding to the red camp. Whitehurst heard voices. He had been asleep, sound asleep, but now there were voices right outside his tent. He heard Ellis's voice and then Shelton's and the cadets. Whitehurst pulled his sleeping bag up over his face. I hope they quiet down, Whitehurst thought. Let me get back to sleep. Someone opened his tent flap and a bright flashlight was aimed right at him, even shining through the sleeping bag. Let's go, up and at 'em, ladies! Whitehurst reluctantly pulled down the bag. Ellis had his light aimed right at him. What is it? Come on, Whitehurst, get up, we're moving out. Whitehurst looked at Barkley's sleeping bag, flat, like a deflated inner tube. Whitehurst rubbed his eyes. But I thought we weren't going until dawn. Ellis shook his head. Somebody stole a reconnaissance map out of Shelton's tent. Okay, Whitehurst, you wouldn't know anything about that now, would you? Whitehurst shook his head, and then he saw Ellis flash his light on Barkley's sleeping bag. Hey, what's going on here? Where's Barclay? Whitehurst turned to the bag as if he had just noticed it was empty. He opened his mouth about to say something. Exactly what, he didn't know. Ellis turned and shouted outside. Major, sir! I think you better have a look in here, sir! Damn you, Barkley. Now you've gotten me in even more deep shit. What a great roommate. Shelton stood beside Ellis, bending down and peering into the tent. Yes, what is it? Ellis made his flashlight move up and down Barkley's empty sleeping bag. Barclay's gone AWOL, sir. What? Shelton moved into the tent. He looked at the sleeping bag and, oh, lucky day, he looked at Whitehurst. His face looked extremely unhappy. Shelton smacked his fist into his palm. I knew it. That bastard, that traitor took the map. He's doubling for the Reds. Can you believe it? Whitehurst was about to answer that no, I can't believe it. But Shelton hurried on. Just a rhetorical question, thought Whitehurst. Shelton grinned. The glow from his flashlight made his face look demonic. He grinned at Ellis, then at Whitehurst. Where is he, fat boy? Whitehurst cleared his throat. I don't know, sir. I don't... Shelton shook his head, still grinning. No matter. If Barkley is doubling for the red team, have we got a surprise for them? Shelton shot another weird look at Whitehurst. He's crazy, thought Whitehurst. Shelton thinks he's Patton. No, Napoleon. He doesn't understand that this is just a stupid school, that we're just kids, AWOL traitors. God, Shelton is nuts. Still grinning, Shelton then said, Be ready to move out in 5 minutes. Whitehurst watched Ellis return the salute sharply, obviously caught up in the wartime mentality of Shelton. Yes, sir. Shelton left and Ellis turned back to Whitehurst. Hey, you heard the man. Get off your ass and get moving, fatty. Then Ellis left and Whitehurst weighed the chances that he could sink back down into his bag and everyone would just forget about him. But he shook his head and stood up, feeling cold and tired and, he admitted, a little worried about Barkley. I should tell Barkley I saw the doll. Whitehurst pulled on his pants. I will, he told himself. Next time I see Barkley, I'll tell him. Tell him that I saw the doll. I saw it killing Botnick and I'll help Barkley. I'll help him whatever he has to do. Whitehurst pulled on a Kent sweatshirt, wondering where the hell Andy Barkley was. The yellow trail crossed a stream, and in the dark, Andy had to step on stones barely visible in the water. They were covered with a slippery moss. He took one step and his foot slipped into the shallow stream. His boot and sock were immediately soaked. He pulled his foot out and stepped onto the next stone. There was still no sign of the red camp. Andy got to the other side of the stream. He stopped again and checked the map. He aimed his light at the map, following the yellow trail. Yes, the trail came to a stream and then a small hill. And there he saw the big red circle. He shrugged his shoulders, trying to settle his heavy pack. With his light picking up the yellow mark on a nearby tree, he started closing in on the red camp. Just at the top of the hill, Andy came to the red camp. There were 2 young cadets on guard duty, but they seemed more interested in talking to each other. They won't be a problem, thought Andy. No, the real problem will be finding out which tent Tyler is in. He waited. Damn it. I can't go checking every tent. Hello, is Tyler in there? I'm from the blue team. What do they do to spies in kiddie military school anyway? Shoot them at dawn with paint pellets? Andy waited. He saw a little kid come out of a small tent off to the side. The cadet trotted off to the cover of some bushes. Nature calls. It calls little kids quite frequently, Andy thought. So I could wait here for Tyler to pop out all evening. Andy rubbed his chin. Then he had an idea. He took off his blue armband and scooted over to where the kid was peeing. Hey, psst, hey you, Andy said. He caught the kid in midstream. Yeah? Andy smiled. Oh, just checking, I heard a noise. There, Andy thought. I hope I sound like a proper authority figure. Thought someone might be sneaking up on us, Andy said. The kid nodded. He wiped his nose. Charming. Better get back to your tent, Andy said. He looked over at the red guards standing near the campfire, completely unprepared for an attack. The kid turned and started to leave. Oh, I wanted to check up on Tyler. Which tent is he in? Number 3? The kid said. Then he pointed helpfully. Andy nodded. Loose lips sink ships, he thought. The red team better shore up its security. Andy waited until the kid went back into his tent before he started creeping behind the tent, out of sight, making his way closer to Tyler. Okay, Slashaholics, this has been chapters 21, 22, and 23 of Child's Play 3, the novelization by Matthew J. Costello. Gotta say, tonight may have seemed like a lot of filler for the story, but there's a few things that I really found interesting about these chapters. I really enjoyed the added scenes we have with Andy and Da Silva, because it's nice that in the middle of all this chaos and all the crazy, horrible, traumatic shit that Andy's been through, that he's found this person to have a relationship with. I wish we had got more info on him and Da Silva, maybe still together in Curse and Cult, coulda, shoulda, woulda, I know. But as far as this novelization goes, it's nice to see him have a spark of happiness in his life, even in the midst of all this chaos and terror. Secondly, spoiler warnings for anybody that hasn't seen Child's Play 3 or read the book. You might want to stop listening right now if you don't want to be spoiled. 1, 2, 3, here I go. It's nice to get into Whitehurst's head. In the movie, he just comes off as like a delusional, yellow-bellied coward until he makes that last hurrah and being a hero, jumping on that grenade. But in the book, we're getting in his head a little bit, and it's showing us that he's slowly building up the confidence and deciding to help out Andy, Maybe the book is going to follow the same story with the grenade. I don't know. I haven't read it all yet. But it's nice to know that if it does go that route, that us as the readers, and listeners and readers, we know that at least Whitehurst had planned on talking to Andy, telling him what happened, and asking Andy what he needed him to do to help him save Tyler. At least we know that Whitehurst was ready to step up and be a man about it if he is about to, go out as a hero. The other thing that I thought was quite funny is we got more of Chucky. What was going on with Chucky during these scenes from the movie. And it was kind of funny that when Chucky saw Da Silva and Andy, he's like, oh boy, Andy's wanting to get lucky. It's just funny hearing that because, yeah, Chucky's kind of, been trying to take Andy's body since Andy was 7, but in a way, it's just funny seeing Chucky, looking through Chucky's eyes at this used to be like this small kid he was trying to chase, and now it's a teenager becoming a man. Since just a little bit of, maybe just a tiny spark of pride there in Chucky for Andy growing up and trying to get lucky. And then we get a funny scene where, from Chucky's POV again, where he's wanting to push Da Silva and Andy off a bluff. That would have been a funny little scene in the movie. But with the movie, it's hard to know what Chucky's thinking or what Andy's thinking. That's why I love these books so much. The last thing I have on my notes here is I really enjoyed how Andy is taking Chucky. Unbeknownst to Andy, he is taking Chucky directly to Tyler, in the backpack. That is just freaking hilarious. That is so Chucky to just get in Andy's backpack and hitch along for the ride. Chucky knew what Andy was up to. He heard Da Silva. He heard Andy talking to Da Silva. He heard Andy talking to Whitehurst. And he plotted, got in Andy's backpack. And hey, you got to hand it to Chucky. That's easiest way to get from point A to point B is just getting Andy's backpack. So, Andy thinks he's on his way to protect Tyler. In reality, he's the one that's bringing the danger directly to Tyler's front door. So, yeah, I enjoyed these 3 chapters, and I'm looking forward to getting back. We're getting really close to the end on this one, guys. Hope you've enjoyed this book so far like I have. Sorry I didn't get an upload out on Saturday or Sunday. We've had these really crazy thunderstorms every evening ever since Saturday. We had them today, too, as you heard at the beginning of the upload. That was me trying to start up the narration about 2 hours before I actually was able to do it because the storm was so bad during that. You may have heard a couple little rumbles of thunder during the upload. I hope I got them all out of there, but I didn't want to make you all wait another night for this upload. So here it is. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back very soon with more. Until then, this has been your friendly neighborhood 80s slasher librarian saying, okay, boils and ghouls, thanks for listening. Pleasant dreams, and I'll see you real soon.